Good evening, Professor. This is Rob Williams here. Um, I'm going to give the summaries of both films. Uh, First, Battleship Potemkin. The release date was 12/21/25. The director was Sergei Eisenstein, who was known for pioneering the Soviet montage theory, which, give me one second, got a bunch of papers here. The Soviet montage theory was an innovative film editing technique where images are juxtaposed to create new emotional and intellectual meaning beyond their individual significance. I found that pretty interesting, by the way. It was a silent film that was widely regarded as one of the most influential films in cinema history due to this editing. Basically, it dramatizes a real event from 1905 where Russian sailors mutinied against the officers on the battleship Potemkin over rotten meat and cruel treatment, which the overall symbolism was basically about revolution and, overcoming oppression. It was broken down into 5 acts, which the first act was Men and Maggots, which highlighted the harsh conditions on board the ship, the cruel treatment of the sailors under the Tsarist regime, and obviously the raw meat or rotten meat was the kind of the tipping point. Act 2 was drama on the quarterdeck, where the sailors were protesting, being served this meat and being treated poorly. And they end up killing the officers and throwing them overboard. Act 3 was the demo man calls for, demo. I can't even read my own handwriting, I apologize. The dam man calls for justice. Vakulinchuk, he was the murdered sailor, is the main character. He basically is martyred and basically becomes a rallying figure for the people of the ship, as well as for the people in Odessa, where he is ceremoniously laid to rest in a tent. I do not understand that concept. I don't know if that's a cultural thing, but that was very strange to me. Just basically put him out there on the dock of the harbor, and everybody comes by and starts visiting. Thought that was very strange. Act 4 was the Odessa Steps. Basically, this basically shows the Tsarist soldiers slaughtering unarmed civilians, women, children, the elderly. That's, even though it's I guess it was added for dramatic reasons. To see something like that is troubling, because you realize that we're so close to that in our own world, in our own time, that this is not so far-fetched, so we definitely have a connection there. It's definitely related in a sense. Act number 5 is Meeting the Squadron, which is the climactic ending, where the other Tsarist ships refused to fire at the Potemkin in a sign of brotherhood, of the connection. So I like that ending. I like the fact that it ended in such a way, but at the same time, I guess a movie like this, I feel like there needed to be more depth to it. There needed to be something else. But I mean, again, I've never really partaken or watched silent films, so it's definitely different. But this film was known for its innovative film techniques, the montage editing, symbolism, the visual composition, and it was basically revolutionizing film language. So which is part of the reason why it became regarded as an influential film, because of these techniques. All right, that's a summary for the Battleship Potemkin. The next summary is for the movie Whiplash, which had a release date of January 16th, 2014. The director was Damien Chazelle, which I did a little research on it, and it said that the film was inspired by real life experiences of the director as a drummer in a highly competitive high school jazz band. So obviously, he had some insight to all of this, and maybe um, his Fletcher, if you will, was more of an amalgam of various conductors or directors that he had to deal with in a highly competitive um, arena, such as, competition jazz bands. Um, I found that very interesting. I really liked this movie. I was very surprised that I actually really liked it, but I can actually kind of relate to it in a sense too, just from a performance standpoint. When I was I shouldn't say very young, but when I was younger, I competed singing, on top of being an athlete. So it was very hard to balance both of those. And I had coaches, and I also had choral directors that were very, very strict. So there was not a lot of leeway in that world. I got yelled at in the morning. I got yelled at in school, from a choral director's standpoint, and then I got yelled at after school because that's just what coaches did. Um, the characters in this movie, which this is another thing that I found very interesting about the film, that it was filmed in like less than 20 days. And I couldn't remember the exact number. I want to say 14, but it could be 19 days, I think, somewhere. But it was less than 20 days. Very tight schedule, not a lot of room for error. So the intensity of this film actually really resonated, because it was definitely something to see and to try to really understand. But the characters in this one were Andrew Neiman, who was played by Miles Teller. Basically, Andrew is a talented drummer who enrolls in Schaefer Conservatory in New York, wants to become a great drummer, or the greatest drummer of his generation. Then there's Terrence Fletcher, which is portrayed by J.K. Simmons, which I think I mentioned in our discussion that he is one of my favorite actors. He portrays a respected conductor of a jazz studio band. I did not see his character being that way. I can understand why it won awards, and I can understand why it was so good, but his character was just brutal. Not used to seeing him in that regard. I really liked him. I think when I think of him, I think of more of like Juno. I think of the Spider-Man movies. I think it was another one was Burn Notice or Burn After Reading. It just seemed like a total 180 from the normal characters that he portrays, and that was very tough to kind of handle. One of the other characters that was significant, or I shouldn't say, is significant to me only because I really like him as an actor, was Paul Reiser. He plays Andrew's dad, Jim. Hadn't seen Paul play in anything in a long time. Probably not since Mad About You with Helen Hunt, the sitcom. He also played in another movie, or played in several movies, but the one movie I think I remember he played in with Matthew Modine and Randy Quaid, where they were all divorced dads. It was a good movie, and I can't remember the name of it right offhand, but but essentially this story is just about obsession, perfection, artistic talent, and discipline, and obviously sacrifice, because none of this stuff would have worked if he hadn't been willing to sacrifice relationships and his health and his mental health, his physical health, in order to pursue this dream. So on the analysis side, the historical and cultural context of both movies contrasted with today's culture and historical context. In the Battleship Potemkin, it's set against the backdrop of pre-revolutionary Russia in 1905. It's highlighted by oppression, social unrest, revolution, suffering of the working class. The cultural and historical context basically serves as a political propaganda piece that is comparable to what we're seeing unfold in our country today. We see a lot of this going on in our media, social media, um, with our government, which is sad, but it's also, the times that we're living in. Uh, on the other side of it, the other analysis is going to be from Whiplash, as it reflects the intense competition in contemporary America, where the majority of the population are content with mediocrity, but yet a small group of people are ambitious enough to chase after their own perfection in whatever it is that they're doing in business, in music, in sports. Um, Very few people are this committed and dedicated to what they're doing. But the historical and cultural context is more about legacy, uh, and it touches also about perfectionism in modern life, as well as the physical and mental health crisis that we pretty much have going on in our country today. Um, how the camera angles were used to help tell the story and communicate ideas. Given specific timestamps about this, in Battleship Potemkin, uh, the close-up at timestamp 38 minutes 50 seconds. And this one, it's a close-up of an old woman. And basically, this is showing the face of oppression. It shows heartache. There's some real emotion there. There were several other high-angle shots at 37:46, which I noted as a bird's eye view, just to kind of show the vastness of the amount of people that were there in the harbor. Uh, I found the large hands of the grieving man at 39:54 as a close-up. That guy's hands were like immense. They were so huge compared to his body. It kind of reminded me of Tom Cruise's character in Tropic Thunder, when he was doing the dancing and stuff. It's kind of, I know it's silly, but that's what it reminded me of. That's just the guy's enormous hands. The extreme long shot at 37:28, which basically still showed more people. Um, and then in Whiplash, uh, the close-ups of Andrew's sweating and bleeding hand, that physical intensity, the blood in the ice at 52:46. Um, that close-up right there, I think put it in perspective, like the overall intensity of what he was doing. That really added to my own anxiety and tension from the movie. That was very, very, very intense. Okay. Sorry, I got lots of notes. So, question 3, how editing was used to help tell the story and communicate ideas. Rapid rhythmic editing, 49:37. Basically, this is the scene uh, of the Odessa steps. It shows the inhumanity of the regime. That seeing the soldiers at the top of the stairs moving down towards the civilians and just shooting indiscriminately was very intense. Again, I really had never been a part of or viewed a silent film before, but that editing and that going back and forth, it created like chaos. It created a like a very tense scene, and that was, I mean, for anybody that would be definitely scary. But when we go back to that part too, that part as well. Let me go back. Timestamp 49:41. The young boy bleeding from being shot, crying and reaching for his mother. Then his body is trampled from fleeing villagers. Uh, just that scene, that being able to cut back to that and then get away from that, and then to move forward from there, and to see at frame 51:24 the overall defiance in the mother's face as she's carrying her child up the stairs towards the soldiers, and then they shoot her and kill her, obviously, at 52:17. Um, that was quite a bit of stuff to take in at that point. Uh, and on the other side, for the other film, uh, Whiplash, it had the quick cuts. Um, the one scene that really stood out to me in that started around 56:45 and stopped or ended around 1 hour, 1 minute, and 30 seconds. So this scene in Whiplash was extremely intense. Um, so Fletcher is basically going through the three drummers, going through Andrew, going through Conley and Carl, and it was second that they don't do exactly what he's looking for, not keeping up with his tempo. He stops them, tells the next person to come up, and he ridicules these guys. He humiliates them in front of each other. And basically what I see in that scene is that he is trying painstakingly to get the best performance out of Andrew that he can possibly get. I think he had already decided at that point that that Connolly and Carl were not going to be, in his jazz band, but he was really trying to push Andrew to his limits and beyond. That those quick cuts back and forth, that verbal aggression that he had in that scene was just extremely intense, and his language was just horrible. The things that he said, I, I don't think that I don't think he could have conveyed his anger, his frustration, without ridiculing and humiliating these guys to a base level. But at the same time, I'm like, when you're not used to that kind of stuff, it's very difficult to process, because you see that and you're thinking, how can you treat somebody like this? How can you come down on somebody so hard in order for them to achieve what you're wanting them to achieve? To me, that it's kind of like my childhood, having my father or stepfather yell at me with such intensity to get me to perform better, in sports. Um, it worked, yes, because of the fear factor, I guess, but at the same time, it it prevented me from trusting. It prevented me from having a relationship that I needed or desired. And I think that that's something that Andrew really is looking for. Even though he has a really great relationship, it looks like, with his father. They go to the movies together, and and you know they they talk. Uh, I think that his father is very supportive, but I think that because of Andrew's motivation and his determination and his desire to be the best, he's really looking for, um, you know, that nod. He's looking for that approval, that validation that only Fletcher can give. Um, so going to question 4, how did these movies use montage to convey meaning? Uh, in the Battle Potemkin, basically 46:10. The Odessa Steps. I guess that's about where it begins. It basically conveys horror, chaos. It can, it's murder. Um, that's pretty intense for anybody to watch. In Whiplash, the relentless practice sessions. Um, they illustrate sacrifice, dedication, and perfection. Okay. Okay. Question 5. What themes were explored in the movies, and how were they communicated on a visual level? Themes communicated on a visual level for Battle Potemkin, obviously still oppression, revolution, inhumanity by the soldiers, social justice, contrasted with the massacre and heroic portrayal of the sailors. Basically, they were the inspiration for the revolution. Uh, you know, basically, they were all trying to um, over overthrow basically the czarist regime. Uh, and with Whiplash, um, I think when you see the various practice scenes, or even the actual performances, uh, those scenes in themselves um, really make you understand that there's so many different layers to this movie. Andrew's desire to be perfect uh, is brutal. It's one of the few times I've ever seen in a movie, that somebody that really portrayed what they were doing, and I'm like, and he did an excellent job at that. Uh, he apparently had also performed the majority of his pieces, so it's a really pretty interesting um, thing when it comes to to actors or actresses who basically encompass their character, and I really feel like he really did that very well. Um, I think towards the end, he also, like after he'd gotten into the accident, and you could see his desire to still try to play, even though he was hurt and basically shaken, and basically just broken, but there was no more. I mean, there was no more he could give at that point. And I think that theme of perfection was basically, you know, uh, laid all out there for you. I mean, you could definitely see that he broke himself physically and mentally uh, to try to become the best, if that makes sense. Okay. All right, number 6. What concepts from the What is Cinema film did you see implemented in the films? Be specific with the timestamps. Um, I'll be honest with you. I, I think comparatively, uh, they use on the Battle Potemkin montage and dynamic editing, uh, comparatively using symbolism. Get back over here. And that timestamp was the raising of the red flag, the only color in the movie, at 43:34. Turning point of the film, transforming grief and outrage into organized resistance or revolution. Um, and basically that visual storytelling conveyed the message of that. In Whiplash, the music creates the sense of tension and excitement, and the excitement of a psychological thriller through audio and visual storytelling. I think that's pretty much the entire movie. They're really the scenes that I think stood out the most was at 56:45, which was in the practice room. That tension, that hostility. Um, a lot of that really just kind of was unsettling. All right. Uh, what are some similarities and comparisons you can make between these films and the film Citizen Kane? Um, from the research that I did, all three films utilized obviously innovative camera techniques, but between Battle Potemkin and Citizen Kane, uh, they used montage to convey complex ideas and emotions. Uh, Between Whiplash and Citizen Kane, it showed the dark side of ambition and the psychological toll that it takes on an individual pursuing their dream. Uh, I really found that pretty interesting that they could be connected in that way. Um, Again, I'm a novice when it comes to analyzing film. Uh, Obviously, that's why we take this class, is to learn how to do that. But I really thought that I knew a lot about movies, and I really over the course of the last few weeks, I've learned that I really know nothing. Very interesting to me. Then the next one, number 8, how is Andrew's character and relationship conveyed visually from the first scene in which he meets Fletcher and the last scene of the performance? So this really, really got me. In the beginning, Andrew seems very hopeful, naive, maybe even a bit arrogant to a degree once he gets into the first chair, basically. But the scene that really got me was when they first meet, was when Fletcher comes into that dimly lit practice room, wearing a black jacket and the hat, and he basically establishes like a dominance and exposing Andrew's vulnerabilities right then and there, because at that particular point you really know that Fletcher's in control, that he's the final word, he's the verdict, and he's going to be the one that judges Andrew throughout the entire film. And then you shift to the last scene, at the performance that he was invited to be a part of. It basically, when you go back and you watch it, and I watched it a couple times, Fletcher did that for a reason, and that was, he was seeking out revenge and basically trying to humiliate Andrew for him losing his job. He knew that it was him, that it wasn't somebody else, that it was Andrew, in fact. And how he humiliates him is that he didn't have the right sheet music, so he didn't know what pieces they were playing, so that's embarrassing. And then after realizing that basically Fletcher had gotten the best of him, he gets up and exits the stage. And backstage, his father is coming through the side door and gives him a hug, basically saying, hey, it's okay, that it's all right, let's just go home. And something clicks with Andrew right then and there, and he's like, no, I'm not going to let this person beat me. I've already beaten him, but I'm going to beat him, or he's beaten me, but I'm not going to let him continue to beat me. I'm going to succeed. I'm going to follow through. And he goes back onto the stage and gives basically the performance of a lifetime. And there is now some type of a mutual respect. There's a connection where Fletcher realizes that Andrew's lived up to every expectation that he ever had, that they, in a weird way, bonded through Fletcher's brutality, his questionable ethics, his harsh teaching methods. I found that to be very interesting. I wasn't expecting that twist, but it was really, really good, and I did not expect to like the movie nearly as much as I thought I would. So I did also want to mention, there were several things in the Battleship Potemkin. I didn't really understand the priest. I kind of felt like maybe that was kind of like obviously it's a religious, point, that they were trying to show some morality or something like that. But I really didn't fully understand or grasp that. But the Vakulanchuk, whatever is however you pronounce that name, he was an actual sailor that was involved in the 1905 mutiny aboard the Battleship Potemkin. His death at the hands of the officer united the rest of the crew, and that leads to the mutiny. He represents the moral bridge between right and wrong, and the calls for justice in the social movement. His dramatic death at 39, and he who was first to sound the cry of rebellion was first to fall at the executioner's hand. That was very dramatic for me. I loved that part of the film. Thought that was very, very influential to the rest of the movie. Um, I really enjoyed that, and I mean there was a couple other things that were pretty interesting with that with the Battleship Potemkin. Um, Obviously, the raising the red flag. Something else I found kind of interesting too was the at 45:25 was the speed of the sailboats as they headed towards the awaiting sailors on board the Potemkin. I, I really found that fascinating that those boats were moving so fast, and I'm assuming that it just has something to do with the editing, but I wasn't pretty sure. I wasn't totally sure. But if you could uh, let me know how they did that or why they did that, because that fast pace of the boat, I found to be very interesting. Um, and that was really pretty much it. Like I said, I think that out of both of these films, the Whiplash movie was definitely more my style. Definitely more something I was interested in. I thoroughly enjoyed that, and I thought that that made a good point. So I really liked it, but I really liked the characters. I love the actors, um, and that's really pretty much it. I hope I summarized this the best I could, and hope you have a great rest of your week. Thanks.